Ballistic missiles and ICBMs, the slumbering evil gods, have awakened, bringing a destructive aura to the multipolar battlefield. In the midst of the fierce conflict between Russia and Ukraine, the resurgence of these ultimate weapons, capable of wiping out humanity, has put every major power on high alert. With sharp analysis from experts like Scott Ritter, a perilous picture begins to emerge. Join us to explore how will these evil gods reshape the global order. 1. Russia's Oreshnik Western fears Syria base is immovable.
We never hear this on the mainstream media in the United States, but the people in Ukraine are sick of this war. They're exhausted, and they will absolutely support the end of the war, even if they don't like the outcome. And I know Ukrainians, and they're very stubborn people, but they're not fools. And what the Russians currently hold is, as a minimum, is Russian. And they know that. And they know that they've mistreated and oppressed the Russians in the past, and this is not going to be tolerated in the future. So I don't think Zelensky has much to say, frankly. He can talk all he likes, but I don't think it's going to make a difference to the ultimate outcome.
The conflict in Ukraine and the evolving geopolitical chessboard in Syria have revealed the calculated strategies and stark realities of modern warfare. Today, we unravel the details of these complex scenarios and their implications on global power dynamics. Mr. Douglas McGregor, a seasoned military analyst, also shares valuable insights on these matters. On December 11, 2024, Ukraine launched 6 ATACMS tactical missiles targeting the military airbase near Taganrog, Russia. The strike aimed to cripple Russia's air capabilities but fell short of strategic objectives. These attacks, while bold, reflect Ukraine's desperation to disrupt Russia's operational capacity as the conflict drags on. However, Russia's response was swift and measured. Rather than escalating with its advanced Oreshnik ICBMs, Moscow opted for surgical precision. High-impact strikes dismantled critical Ukrainian fuel and energy infrastructures near the Polish border, a move designed not only to incapacitate Ukraine's war efforts, but also to send a clear message to NATO and the West. The deliberate decision to refrain from deploying strategic weapons highlights Moscow's calculated restraint, showcasing both its technological superiority and its ability to maintain strategic composure under pressure. The Oreshnik missiles, reserved as a trump card, remain Russia's deterrent against NATO's provocations. These missiles, capable of delivering devastating payloads, are central to Russia's long-term strategic planning. Their production continues at an accelerated pace, ensuring that Moscow has sufficient reserves to address potential conflicts on multiple fronts. This implicit threat looms large over Europe and North America, deterring escalation while simultaneously reinforcing Russia's geopolitical stance. The mere existence of Oreshnik has reshaped the strategic calculus of Western policymakers, forcing them to weigh the consequences of direct confrontation. Ukraine's decision to strike Taganrog underscores the growing desperation of Kyiv's leadership. As Russia dismantles critical energy and logistics networks, the ripple effects are felt across the battlefield and beyond. Moscow's precision strikes are not just about military advantage, they signal a broader strategy aimed at weakening Ukraine's ability to sustain prolonged conflict. As Ukraine faces the brunt of these calculated responses, another geopolitical front unfolds in the Middle East, Syria. Let us shift focus to Russia's evolving strategy there. Mr. Douglas McGregor emphasizes the importance of understanding the broader implications of these shifts. In Syria, the fall of President Bashar al-Assad marks a turning point in a decade-long saga of resilience and resistance. Assad's peaceful transfer of power to opposition forces, while unexpected by some, is a testament to the complex interplay of international and domestic pressures. This transition, far from a chaotic collapse, represents a strategic recalibration that preserves key Russian interests in the region. Despite this political shift, Russia's strategic foothold in Syria remains unshaken. The naval base at Tartus and the Khmeimim air base continue to serve as steel shields for Moscow's Middle Eastern strategy. These bases are not mere military outposts, they are vital nodes in Russia's global power projection. Fortified through agreements with the new administration, their long-term security is assured. Attempts by opposition forces to challenge these bases would undoubtedly provoke swift and decisive retaliation from Moscow, solidifying their status as untouchable strongholds. Russia's orderly withdrawal from peripheral regions is a masterclass in calculated compromise. By negotiating with opposition leaders, Moscow has ensured the preservation of both military and economic assets. This strategy allows Russian forces to regroup and consolidate in critical areas like Latakia and Tartus, maintaining a robust defensive posture while minimizing unnecessary expenditures. Moreover, these agreements reflect Moscow's pragmatic approach to conflict resolution. Unlike the chaotic retreats witnessed in other theaters, Russia's maneuvers in Syria demonstrate a deliberate effort to balance military necessity with diplomatic engagement. The ongoing presence of Russian forces in these strategic locations underscores their importance not just for Syria, but for Russia's broader geopolitical objectives. While some might draw parallels with US retreats in places like Afghanistan, the differences are stark. Russia's methodical approach paints a narrative of strategic consolidation rather than abandonment. Moscow's actions reflect a clear understanding of its priorities and a willingness to adapt to changing circumstances without compromising core interests. Mr. Douglas McGregor remarks on the strategic depth of these maneuvers, highlighting their calculated nature. Assad's regime faltered under the weight of internal discord, decades of corruption, and the unrelenting pressures of international sanctions. Over 10 years of civil war left Syria fractured, its institutions weakened, and its economy in shambles. The fall of Assad's government signifies a major shift, but it is not without calculated intent. The collapse of the regime created a power vacuum that neighboring states wasted no time in exploiting. Israel, with its long-standing interest in neutralizing threats from the Syrian front, has intensified airstrikes on key military targets. These coordinated operations have reportedly destroyed over 80% of Assad's remaining military infrastructure, including missile depots, command centers, and air defense systems. By crippling these assets, Israel aims to secure its borders and prevent the proliferation of advanced weaponry to hostile factions like Hezbollah. Some analysts suggest that Russia's tacit approval of these actions reflects a pragmatic choice, avoiding direct confrontation with Israel while safeguarding its own interests. At the same time, the Syrian opposition consolidates its control over key regions, signaling the beginning of a new phase in the country's political landscape. This transitional government faces immense challenges, from rebuilding shattered infrastructure to establishing governance in war-torn areas. The lack of cohesion among opposition factions further complicates this endeavor, raising questions about Syria's long-term stability. Amid this chaos, Russia's focus has shifted to Latakia. This coastal region, known for its strong Alawite and Christian communities, presents a unique opportunity for Moscow. By fostering the development of an autonomous zone, Russia not only secures a strategic buffer, but also reinforces its narrative as a stabilizing force in the region. Such a stronghold would provide Moscow with a platform to project power across the eastern Mediterranean while ensuring the safety of its Tartus and Kamai mine bases. However, this vision is fraught with obstacles. Competing factions, foreign interventions, and deep-seated sectarian tensions threaten to derail efforts to establish a cohesive administration in Latakia. Reports indicate that Russia has deployed additional advisors and military resources to bolster local governance structures and strengthen defenses around its key installations. These moves underline Moscow's dual strategy, securing immediate military assets while laying the groundwork for long-term influence. Russia's actions in Latakia highlight its broader ambitions in Syria. By stabilizing this coastal enclave, Moscow positions itself as an indispensable player in the region's evolving dynamics. Yet the challenges are far from over. As Turkey pursues its expansionist goals in the US, deepens its involvement in Kurdish territories, Russia must navigate a complex web of competing interests. The question remains, can Moscow's calculated strategy withstand the pressures of these competing powers and ensure its long-term dominance in the region? Let's delve deeper into the geopolitical chessboard. The Syrian conflict has long transcended its borders, becoming a nexus of global power struggles. Control over resources and strategic routes remains at the heart of this contest. Turkey's ambitions extend beyond countering Kurdish forces. Ankara's goals include securing its southern border and dominating energy corridors critical to Europe. Meanwhile, the US continues to leverage its presence in Kurdish-held territories to maintain influence and counter adversaries like Iran and Russia. As these powers maneuver, the role of naval supremacy cannot be understated. The US aircraft carrier strike groups exemplify a modern blend of force projection and logistical resilience. Each carrier group, comprised of one Nimitz or Ford-class carrier, is supported by guided missile cruisers, destroyers, attack submarines, and a complement of over 70 aircraft. These groups serve not only as mobile air bases, but also as symbols of overwhelming military might. Russia's approach to these challenges is marked by restraint and pragmatism. Unlike the indiscriminate bombings observed in Lebanon and Gaza, Moscow's precision strikes aim to minimize civilian casualties while neutralizing specific threats. This methodology not only preserves Russia's image, but also reinforces its reputation as a disciplined and calculated military power. In contrast, NATO's operations often prioritize overwhelming force, leading to significant collateral damage. This blunt approach has fueled resentment and destabilization, eroding Western credibility in the region. Moscow's strategy, by comparison, emphasizes strategic gains without the cost of alienating local populations. The U.S. Navy's carrier groups maintain a persistent presence in critical regions, enabling rapid response to crises. Their ability to establish logistical supply chains through mobile refueling and resupply ships allows them to remain operational for extended periods without reliance on local bases. This flexibility grants the U.S. unmatched global reach, often positioning its forces ahead of potential adversaries. Russia, while lacking the same scale of naval power, has developed countermeasures to offset this imbalance. Hypersonic missile systems, like the Zircon, pose a significant threat to carrier groups, altering the strategic calculations of Western planners. These advancements reflect Moscow's emphasis on asymmetrical capabilities to challenge U.S. dominance at sea. However, sustaining this balance is no small feat. As pressures mount in Ukraine and Syria, Russia faces the dual challenge of maintaining its strategic foothold while countering external provocations. The evolving dynamics demand constant recalibration as Moscow seeks to preserve its influence in an increasingly multipolar world. And the question remains, can Russia's calculated strategy outpace the ambitions of its rivals and ensure long-term stability? From Ukraine's battlefields to Syria's fractured landscape, Russia navigates a world of shifting alliances and calculated risks. These theaters, though distinct, are interconnected in the broader framework of Moscow's strategic ambitions. The precision and restraint observed in Ukraine mirror the pragmatism employed in Syria, highlighting a deliberate and cohesive approach to safeguarding national interests. Mr. Douglas McGregor concludes that these developments reflect Russia's broader strategic ambitions and calculated restraint. Unlike the reactive policies seen in Western strategies, Russia has demonstrated a unique capacity for long-term planning. This focus on calculated moves, rather than knee-jerk responses, underlines a deep understanding of modern power dynamics. The ripple effects of these strategies extend far beyond the immediate regions. Europe watches with bated breath as energy security becomes an increasingly critical issue. Meanwhile, in the Middle East, Russia's role as a stabilizing force challenges the narratives long dominated by Western interventionism. These shifts not only redefine Russia's image, but also recalibrate the global balance of power. Even within its challenges, Moscow demonstrates an uncanny ability to adapt and evolve. Whether countering sanctions, managing military campaigns, or recalibrating alliances, Russia proves time and again that resilience and pragmatism remain cornerstones of its geopolitical playbook. As we close this chapter, we are reminded that the story is far from over. The lessons from these theaters will shape the contours of global geopolitics for years to come. Stay tuned for more in-depth analyses. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to stay informed on the latest in global geopolitics. 2. Oreshnik and ICBMS, who rekindle the sleeping evil gods.
Welcome to the National Press Club and to this event, A Call for Action, the Dangers of Nuclear War. I opted to start with this video because this video premiered on September 28th of this year at an event that was held in Kingston, New York, the kickoff for what we called Operation Dawn. Operation Dawn was 4 questions that I was asking the American voter. Simply, what would you do to save democracy, to save America, to save the world through your vote in November? Basically, to say no to nuclear war. Because at that point in time, not a single candidate was talking about the danger of nuclear war. It's as if the conflict between the United States and Russia didn't exist. Well, my daughters were very scared.
On November 21st, the Russian military introduced the world to its hypersonic masterpiece, the Oreshnik ballistic missile. Moscow claims it's unstoppable, Ukraine confirms it's untraceable, and the West admits it's terrifying. But what is Oreshnik, and why has it reawakened fears of global annihilation? Mr. Oreshnik says, personal preferences, however. I have some time for some neutral. Even seasoned military observers like Inspector Scott Ritter have pointed out that the West's inability to match such advancements reveals just how far Russia has pulled ahead in hypersonic warfare. To answer that, we need to break down this missile's unmatched capabilities, its historical context, and what it means for the balance of global power. The Oreshnik missile, named after the cedar tree in Russian, represents the cutting edge of hypersonic technology, a technological leap that is reshaping the landscape of modern warfare. Imagine a missile capable of reaching speeds of Mach 10 times the speed of sound. To put that into perspective, 3 kilometers per second means that this missile travels faster than even the human eye can track. When you heard a name, Biscuit. At such velocity, a target 800 kilometers away, the approximate distance from Moscow to Kiev, can be struck in just 15 minutes. This speed leaves almost no time for detection, response, or interception. But what sets the Oreshnik apart isn't just its speed, it's its ability to maneuver mid-flight. Unlike traditional ballistic missiles that follow predictable parabolic trajectories, Oreshnik can change course mid-air, dodging radar systems and defensive interceptors. Western air defense systems like the American SM-3 Block IIA or Israel's Arrow 3 are built to track predictable flight paths. Against Oreshnik, these systems are rendered obsolete, little more than expensive, powerless relics in the face of a hypersonic menace. The sophistication of this weapon doesn't stop at its maneuverability. Oreshnik carries a MIRV payload, that is, multiple independently targetable reentry vehicles, capable of striking several targets simultaneously. These warheads, ranging between 3 to 6 individual payloads, can each be programmed to hit different locations with pinpoint accuracy. Military experts in Russia, including the respected analyst Igor Korochenko, have described Oreshnik as nothing short of a masterpiece, a term not used lightly when discussing modern military technology. Korochenko highlights the missile's ability to operate as a dual-threat platform, capable of delivering both conventional and nuclear payloads, depending on mission requirements. Even experienced Western observers, such as Inspector Scott Ritter, acknowledge the disruptive impact of such a weapon. Ritter, a former UN weapons inspector, has emphasized that the Oreshnik is more than just a missile. It's a strategic shift, a technological wake-up call for a complacent West that has, for far too long, underestimated Russia's engineering capabilities. For Ukraine, the Oreshnik is devastating. For NATO, it's alarming. And for the United States, it's a harsh reminder that air superiority and defensive dominance are no longer guaranteed. While the West has poured billions into systems like the Patriot and THAAD, these are fundamentally designed for yesterday's threats, not tomorrow's hypersonic realities. This isn't just about technology. The Oreshnik represents a message, a blunt, undeniable signal of Russia's strategic capability. As President Vladimir Putin stated, no system on Earth can intercept this weapon. At the end of last February, Taiwan called its new president Andrew Chino. And that statement isn't bravado, it's reality. The West now faces a missile that can strike faster, harder, and with greater precision than anything in their current arsenal. While Western analysts scramble to dismiss this weapon as a repurposed Soviet design, the results speak for themselves. Russia has demonstrated that it can strike, evade, and overwhelm any target it chooses. The question is no longer whether Oreshnik can change modern warfare. It already has. The real question is, how will the West respond? But this isn't just about technology. It's about history, power, and the shadow of ballistic missiles that once ruled the Cold War. Ballistic missiles are nothing new. At the end of World War II, Nazi Germany shocked the world with the V-2 rocket, the first modern ballistic missile. Although its battlefield success was limited, the V-2 represented a critical breakthrough. It traveled at supersonic speeds, struck targets with terrifying precision for its time, and laid the foundation for an entirely new era of warfare. As the smoke of World War II settled, the true battle for missile supremacy began. So, German scientists, including those who worked on the V-2 program, were quickly absorbed by the world's emerging superpowers. The United States and the Soviet Union both saw the potential. Missiles that could carry warheads, conventional or nuclear, thousands of kilometers to obliterate cities. This marked the dawn of the Cold War arms race. Throughout the 1950s and 60s, missile technology accelerated at a breakneck pace. Both sides pushed the limits of physics to develop the first intercontinental ballistic missiles, ICBMs, weapons capable of delivering nuclear devastation across continents. In 1957, the Soviet Union shocked the world yet again with the launch of Sputnik, a satellite that proved they could send payloads into space, and with it, the knowledge that they could rain warheads on any city in the United States. By the 1960s, ICBMs like the Soviet R-36 Satan and the American Titan II became the ultimate symbols of military might. These weren't just missiles. They were destroyers of nations, capable of wiping entire civilizations off the map. It was during this era that the concept of mutually assured destruction, MAD, took hold. The terrifying notion that any attack would be met with complete retaliation, guaranteeing the annihilation of both attacker and defender. But as these weapons became too dangerous, the world's superpowers were forced to confront an undeniable truth. An unregulated arms race was a race to extinction. The result was a series of treaties designed to limit the development and deployment of ballistic missiles. In 1972, the SALT-I Agreement froze the number of strategic missile launchers. In 1987, the INF Treaty, signed by President Ronald Reagan and Soviet leader Mikhail Gorbachev, banned land-based missiles with ranges between 500 and 500 kilometers. And in 1991, the START Treaty marked a historic step, reducing both nations' strategic nuclear arsenals for the first time. Yet these agreements, which many believed marked the end of the missile arms race, were not built to last. The turning point came in 2019, when President Donald Trump announced that the United States would withdraw from the INF Treaty. Citing Russian violations, claims Moscow denied Trump's decision effectively dismantled the last major restraint on intermediate-range missile development. The consequences of this decision were immediate. With the restrictions gone, both the United States and Russia began developing new generations of missiles. But Russia was faster. While the West was busy debating policies, Moscow was busy building hypersonics. The Oreshnik missile is not just the product of modern engineering. It's the result of a decades-long legacy of ballistic missile development. As Inspector Scott Ritter noted, the collapse of arms treaties gave Russia a free hand, and they seized the opportunity. The Oreshnik is the latest proof that Russia is decades ahead in hypersonic weapons, a gap the West may struggle to close for years to come. With no restrictions left, Russia seized the opportunity to develop weapons like the Oreshnik. But what does this mean for today's battlefield? On November 21st, Russia's Oreshnik missile delivered a statement that the world could not ignore. Launched from Kapustin Yar, a well-known testing range in Russia's Astrakhan region, the missile traveled 800 kilometers in just 15 minutes, striking critical infrastructure in the Ukrainian city of Dnipro. At Mach 11, more than 1,350 kilometers per hour. The strike not only demonstrated the missile's blistering speed, but also exposed a stark reality. Ukraine's defenses, heavily reliant on outdated Western systems, are utterly powerless against this level of technology. Ukrainian forces were caught off guard. Despite millions of dollars in NATO-supplied air defenses, including systems like the NASMS and the S-300, no alarms were sounded, no interceptors were launched, and no countermeasures were effective. This wasn't just a failure of Ukrainian systems, This was a demonstration of the impossibility of intercepting hypersonic weapons with existing technology. Military experts were quick to weigh in. Ukrainian officials initially dismissed the missile as an improvised ballistic weapon, but subsequent analysis of the debris painted a far grimmer picture. The telegram channels of Ukraine's intelligence directorate confirmed the missile traveled at speeds exceeding Mach 10 and hit its target with surgical precision. According to Russian analysts, including Igor Korochenko, the Oreshnik's strike in Dnipro wasn't just a battlefield attack, it was a combat test. A test to demonstrate Oreshnik's capabilities in a real-world environment under combat conditions. And the results? A resounding success. Debris collected at the site revealed the missile's advanced MIRV vehicles, multiple independently targetable re-entry vehicles, allowing it to deliver multiple warheads simultaneously. While only a single warhead was reportedly used in this strike, the implications for future engagements are clear. Ukraine, and by extension NATO, have no answer to this technology. Even seasoned observers, including Inspector Scott Ritter, a former UN weapons inspector, highlight that the Dnipro strike is about more than Ukraine's inability to defend itself. It's a sobering reminder of the West's failure to prepare for next-generation warfare. For years, NATO dismissed Russia's hypersonic claims as mere propaganda, focusing instead on counterinsurgency operations and legacy missile defense systems. But the Oreshnik strike makes it crystal clear: the gap between Russia and the West in hypersonic technology isn't closing. It's widening. Consider this. The Patriot and NASAM systems, both deployed extensively in Ukraine, are incapable of tracking hypersonic missiles moving at Mach 10 or higher. These systems were designed to intercept traditional ballistic threats following predictable flight paths. The Oreshnik, on the other hand, can alter its trajectory mid-air, dodging radars and rendering interceptors ineffective. Ukrainian forces, despite their heavy reliance on NATO-supplied technology, are effectively fighting blind against such weapons. The battlefield impact of the Oreshnik missile is undeniable. It has shattered Ukraine's air defense umbrella, undermined NATO's technological confidence, and proven Russia's ability to strike with impunity. The strike in Dnipro wasn't about military gain. It was a message that Russia can bypass any defenses, strike any target, and deliver devastating precision without warning. As Inspector Scott Ritter remarked, the Oreshnik is not just a missile, it's a deterrent. It forces Ukraine and its NATO backers to confront an uncomfortable truth. Russia's military technology is not only superior, but also untouchable under current conditions. And so, the message from Russia is clear. Oreshnik isn't just a battlefield weapon, it's a strategic game changer. NATO must now reckon with a future where hypersonic missiles decide not just battles, but the very balance of power. The message from Russia is clear. Oreshnik isn't just a weapon, it's a strategic deterrent that NATO must now reckon with. The strategic implications of the Oreshnik missile are profound. With a staggering range of up to 5,500 kilometers, Oreshnik can target every NATO base in Europe within mere minutes. From the UK to Poland, from the Baltics to southern Italy, no European stronghold is safe. For decades, NATO leaders assured themselves that their layered missile defense systems, such as the HAD, Terminal High Altitude Area Defense, or the Aegis-equipped SM-3 interceptors, were sufficient to counter any missile threat. But Oreshnik changes everything. It is not just a battlefield weapon, it is a tool of strategic deterrence, forcing NATO to confront an uncomfortable truth: their dominance is no longer guaranteed. The missile's hypersonic speed, coupled with its ability to maneuver mid-flight, renders existing defenses useless. Unlike traditional ICBMs, which follow predictable ballistic arcs, Oreshnik can adjust its path, weaving through radar nets, evading interceptors, and ensuring its warheads strike with absolute precision. But this isn't just about Russia demonstrating technological superiority. It's a message. As Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov bluntly stated, "We hope Washington understands this signal." And what is that signal? It's simple. Russia now possesses the capability to strike its adversaries quickly, accurately, and without resistance. NATO's long-held strategy of containment, based on overwhelming air defenses and missile shields, has been shattered. Oreshnik proves that Russia has leapt ahead, while the West, burdened by decades of complacency, remains stuck fighting yesterday's wars. For the United States, the implications are even more alarming. Inspector Scott Ritter, an experienced military analyst, describes Oreshnik as a wake-up call to America's outdated defense doctrines. Despite their massive military budgets, over $800 billion annually, the US finds itself unprepared to counter a hypersonic threat like this. American missile defense relies heavily on systems like the SM-3 block IIA and the land-based Patriot PAC-3, both of which are incapable of intercepting weapons moving at hypersonic speeds. Even the much-lauded THAAD system, designed to intercept missiles in their terminal phase, is rendered ineffective against a weapon like Oreshnik that can change trajectory mid-flight. The West has invested billions into defenses that are now obsolete. But it isn't just about Europe. Oreshnik's range positions it as a global deterrent. With a maximum reach of 5,500 kilometers, this missile can target regions far beyond NATO's eastern flank. From military installations to critical infrastructure, Russia now possesses a weapon that gives it a distinct strategic edge. The collapse of arms control treaties, particularly the INF Treaty in 2019, paved the way for the development of hypersonic missiles like Oreshnik. With no legal framework to limit these weapons, Russia has seized the opportunity, while the West remains unprepared. And let's not forget the geopolitical ramifications. NATO's expansion into Eastern Europe, its relentless military exercises near Russia's borders, and its support for Ukraine have only pushed Moscow further into action. For Russia, the Oreshnik isn't just a weapon. It's a warning that escalation will be met with force and that Western arrogance comes with consequences. So, what does this mean for the future? The world now stands on the brink of a new arms race, one dominated not by traditional ballistic missiles, but by hypersonic weapons. Speed and precision will decide the victor, and nations that fail to keep up risk falling into irrelevance. While NATO scrambles to modernize its defenses and the US struggles to catch up, Russia has already secured its place as the leader in hypersonic technology. It all started as Oreshnik is a symbol of that dominance, a weapon that proves Russia's strategic vision is decades ahead of its rivals. As global tensions rise and hypersonic arsenals grow, one thing is clear: the days of complacency are over. The question now is whether the West will adapt or continue to fall behind. As Russia continues testing and deploying hypersonic missiles, the world finds itself on the brink of a new arms race, one where speed and precision decide the victor. 3. Oreshnik and Balas Missile, God of War revived.
Operation Dawn was not a one-time event. Well, my daughters were very scared. The child of a weapons inspector, because he comes home full of doom and gloom, and it scared them. And they were scared to death about the danger of nuclear war. So they created this artificial world that allowed them to escape. And this video captured that. And it's what motivates me to do what I do. Saving the lives of my children, saving the lives of your children, saving the lives of all the innocent people in America and around the world whose existence is threatened by the imminent danger of nuclear war. Now,
as Inspector Scott Ritter bluntly states and warns, the world is now witnessing the triumphant return of the forgotten kings of warfare tactical ballistic missiles. For decades, treaties like the INF and START, lauded by the West as moral victories, imposed severe limits on these weapons. But under the weight of shifting geopolitics and Western hypocrisy, those agreements have collapsed like houses of cards, And now who leads the resurgence? Russia, whose advancements in missile technology have exposed the fragility of the West's expensive military myths. Let's not sugarcoat the reality. The multipolar world we live in today has shattered the illusion of Western invincibility. Old weapons like ballistic missiles, once dismissed as obsolete relics, are back with a vengeance deadlier and more precise than ever before. Russia's Iskander-M and Kinzhal hypersonic missile systems are prime examples. These weapons don't just strike targets, they annihilate them with precision, making a mockery of overhyped Western defenses like the Patriot Pac-3. Billions of dollars poured into American-made systems, yet a single strike from Kinzhal or Iskander turns them to rubble. It's like watching the glass trophies of a failing empire shatter in real time. But here's the key question: how did we get here? Why, after decades of arms control, has the world suddenly returned to an era dominated by tactical ballistic missiles? The answer lies in broken treaties, failed promises, and the arrogance of those who believed that military supremacy could last forever. Russia saw the writing on the wall long before anyone else, and as a result, it leads the charge while the West struggles to keep up. To truly understand this resurgence of ballistic power, we must look back at the post-Cold War period of time when these weapons were shelved, dismissed, and nearly forgotten. So what forced their return to the modern battlefield? Let's explore. At the end of the Cold War, the United States and its allies celebrated what they believed was the final nail in the coffin for ballistic missiles. Treaties like the INF ensured that development of land-based intermediate-range systems ground to a halt. Western powers were triumphant, convinced that they'd eradicated the ballistic threat forever. But for smaller nations, this was a death sentence. Without ballistic deterrence, countries like Iraq and Libya crumbled under Western military pressure, their defenses shattered in days. Here lies the irony: while ballistic missiles were demonized as dangerous, the West had no moral dilemma, unleashing waves of cruise missiles, bombs, and airstrikes against weaker adversaries. The message was crystal clear: only Western nations were allowed to wield destruction. The rest, they were expected to sit quietly and accept their vulnerability. But geopolitics is not static, and war has no patience for hypocrisy. By the early 2000s, nations like Iran, North Korea, and even Israel began to rewrite the rules. These countries realized a simple truth: ballistic missiles are cheaper, faster to develop, and far deadlier than any alternatives. They took old Soviet systems like the Scud, Taka, and Oka, enhanced their range and precision, and in doing so, proved the West wrong. Why spend billions on air and naval forces when a single missile fired from the ground can strike with devastating accuracy? Take North Korea's KN-24, for example, an upgrade of older designs now capable of hitting targets with pinpoint accuracy. Or Iran's Fate 110, a weapon that has proven its battlefield utility time and time again. The West scoffed at these nations, dismissing their progress as insignificant. But when these missiles started hitting targets, suddenly the laughter stopped. Ballistic missiles were no longer relics, they were tools of power, tools that even smaller nations could afford to wield. But the true turning point came when one nation decided to stop playing by the West's rules. Russia re-entered the battlefield with a vengeance, unveiling systems that left Western defenses scrambling for answers. Enter the Iskander, and the world hasn't been the same since. The late 2000s marked a seismic shift in global military dynamics. As the world transitioned into a multipolar era, Russia emerged as the leader in ballistic missile technology. Its introduction of the Iskander missile system was nothing short of revolutionary. This wasn't just a new weapon, it was a statement of intent. Unlike the crude missiles of the past, the Iskander was precise, versatile, and utterly unstoppable. The US and its allies were furious. Unable to compete, Washington did what it does best: it tore up the INF Treaty in 2019. The INF, once praised as a cornerstone of arms control, was suddenly declared obsolete. Why? Because the US couldn't keep up. Once again, the West's moral arguments proved to be as flexible as they were hypocritical. Treaties mattered only when they benefited Washington's strategic interests. But here's where things get interesting. The collapse of the INF Treaty didn't just free Russia, it freed the entire world. Countries once bound by arbitrary limits began developing their own ballistic systems. The result? A global arms race where precision and lethality reigned supreme. Nations like Iran, North Korea, and even Ukraine started showcasing their ballistic programs, though Ukraine's attempts, like the Grom missile, remain laughably primitive compared to Russia's advancements. Meanwhile, Russia continued to perfect its systems. The Iskander-M, capable of delivering conventional warheads with pinpoint accuracy, became the gold standard of tactical ballistic weapons. The West's response? Desperation, panic, and over-reliance on systems like the Patriot PAC-3, which have failed time and time again to stop Russian strikes. And yet, while the West tore up treaties and issued condemnations, Russia was focused on one thing: results. Perfecting its ballistic arsenal, Russia unveiled not just the Iskander, but an even greater weapon, the Oreshnik missile. Let's take a closer look. As former UN weapons inspector Scott Ritter aptly observed, Russia's Iskander missile system represents a quantum leap in modern warfare, one that Western nations simply cannot match. Fast, maneuverable, and virtually immune to interception, the Iskander doesn't just represent a weapon, it's a wake-up call to those clinging to outdated notions of military supremacy. While the West spends billions parading untested defenses, Russia focuses on creating missiles that hit their mark every time. Consider this: the Iskander-M is capable of delivering both nuclear and conventional warheads with pinpoint accuracy at ranges up to 500 kilometers, a boundary dictated only by outdated treaties like the INF, which Russia's adversaries conveniently ignored when it suited them. With its quasi-ballistic trajectory and advanced evasion systems, the Iskander outsmarts every Western defense, including the overhyped Patriot PAC-3. These aren't theories, they're facts, proven time and again on the battlefield, from Syria to Ukraine. But Russia's advancements don't stop there. On November 26, 2024, Russia introduced the Oreshnik missile, an evolution of the terrifying RS-26 Rubezh ICBM. Designed with multi-warhead capabilities and non-nuclear payloads, the Oreshnik obliterates the myth that long-range ballistic power requires nuclear warheads. The message is clear: Russia can hit any target, anywhere, with devastating precision and without breaking international norms, a term the West loves to redefine whenever it loses control. This shift is more than technological, it's strategic. By leveraging advancements in precision targeting, hypersonic speeds, and maneuverable warheads, Russia has redefined the battlefield. Western militaries, weighed down by bureaucracy and overpriced systems, can only watch as Iskander and Oreshnik demonstrate the future of warfare. This isn't speculation. In Ukraine alone, countless Russian strikes have turned Western hardware into smoking craters. Proof that when precision meets innovation, no amount of hype can stop a well-aimed missile. But while Russia advances with practical and devastating solutions, the West remains stuck in the past, pouring billions into flashy but ineffective systems. None exemplify this failure more than the so-called miracle shield of American air defense, the Patriot PAC-3. The Patriot missile system, the crown jewel of American defense marketing. A multi-billion-dollar miracle shield praised endlessly by Western media and military-industrial PR campaigns. At an eye-watering cost of $9 billion per brigade, the Patriot isn't a defense system, it's a status symbol, a shiny toy for nations desperate to prove their allegiance to Washington. But as history has repeatedly shown, flashy price tags don't stop missiles. Developed in the 1980s as a replacement for outdated systems, the Patriot was sold as the ultimate defense against modern threats. Its marketing boasts precision, reliability, and invincibility. Yet in real-world combat, those claims fall apart faster than the missiles it's supposed to intercept. Let's go back to the Gulf War of 1991, where a single Iraqi Scud-B missile effortlessly bypassed the Patriot system and struck a US base in Saudi Arabia, killing 28 soldiers and injuring over 200 others. So much for state-of-the-art protection. The West's excuse? That Iraq had modified the Scud, making it unstable. But shouldn't a $9 billion system handle something as primitive as a Scud? The truth is far less flattering. Independent reports from that era revealed that Patriot systems intercepted less than 30% of their targets, even in ideal conditions, with minimal electronic interference. Fast forward to today, and the Patriot PAC-3 remains fundamentally flawed, relying on outdated radar systems and requiring satellite coordination to function, a dependency that makes it vulnerable to advanced electronic warfare. Worse still, Patriot systems are laughably expensive to operate. A single PAC-3 missile costs $6.5 million, Compare that to the cost of a Russian ballistic strike, like the Iskander or Kinzhal, which delivers a devastating payload for a fraction of the price. If this sounds like a bad investment, that's because it is. And while American arms manufacturers profit handsomely, their customers are left with false hope and smoldering wreckage when the Patriot inevitably fails. But nothing has exposed the Patriot's vulnerabilities more than its humiliating encounters with Russia's Kinzhal hypersonic missile, a weapon that reduced the so-called miracle shield to ashes. As Scott Ritter so accurately pointed out, the catastrophic failures of the Patriot system against Russian hypersonic missiles are no surprise to anyone paying attention. In Ukraine, the West's overpriced, overhyped defenses have been exposed for what they really are: useless against modern Russian weapons like the Kinzhal. Let's revisit October 15th, 2023. A day that should live in infamy for American air defenses. Faced with a single Russian Kh-47 Kinzhal hypersonic missile, Ukraine's Patriot battery fired 30 PAC-3 interceptors, a frantic, desperate attempt to stop the unstoppable. And everything I've said from this point on should be an objective. The cost? A staggering $200 million worth of missiles launched into the sky. The result? The Kinzhal calmly bypassed the defense, struck its target, and obliterated the entire Patriot battery, destroying billions of dollars of equipment and sending operators running for cover. Footage of the massive explosion, captured from kilometers away, told the whole story: Western arrogance, reduced to rubble by Russian precision. But this wasn't an isolated incident. In the 3 years of this conflict, not a single Russian Iskander, Kh-101, or Kh-69 missile has been intercepted by Patriot systems. None. Zero. The so-called miracle shield has failed again and again against the very weapons it was designed to stop. And while Washington continues its hollow PR campaigns, Russia's missiles keep hitting their targets. Reliably, devastatingly, and without interruption. Here's the brutal truth. The Patriot system isn't a defense. It's a liability. It burns through billions in taxpayer dollars, delivers false promises, and crumbles when faced with real threats. Meanwhile, Russia's hypersonic arsenal, led by weapons like the Kinzhal, continues to dominate the battlefield. And this is just the beginning. While Russia perfects its unstoppable hypersonic weapons, the West remains stuck, selling broken systems to desperate allies. The battlefield verdict is clear. The Patriot is an overpriced embarrassment. To quote Scott Ritter once more, the world has entered a new era, one where tactical ballistic missiles define modern warfare. Russia, with its precision systems like Iskander and Kinzhal, has shattered the West's illusion of military superiority. The Patriot, glorified as a miracle defense, now lies buried under the rubble of Ukraine's failed defenses. From Syria to Ukraine, ballistic missiles have proven to be the ultimate battlefield equalizer. Affordable, precise, and unstoppable. For nations seeking real deterrence, these weapons are the key to survival in a multipolar world. Meanwhile, the US arms industry will keep selling its overpriced glass trophies to anyone foolish enough to buy them. Ballistic missiles are back, and this time, they're here to stay. The question is, how long can the West keep pretending otherwise? This is where many of my discussions with US policymakers and US military leaders started out. For Putin's Oreshnik unstoppable, ambiguous, West's greatest fears.
But the Russians are very deliberate about this business because, once again, they did not enter this war for the purpose of conquering Ukraine. The only people that they want inside Russia are people that want to be there, and those are primarily Russians. Now that has to be understood. The second thing is that contradiction has been there from the first day, March of 2022, and listen to everybody tell us the Ukrainians are winning, the Russians are incompetent, and they can't do anything. The Russians are losing thousands, the Ukrainians aren't taking any casualties. So here we are, almost 3 years later, and we're looking at a humanitarian disaster in Western Ukraine and in much of Eastern Ukraine, a disaster that was never necessary. This is over as far as the Russians are concerned. They're happy to end it, but they're not going to surrender anything. They have legitimate security interests there, have always had them for centuries.
Welcome to today's in-depth analysis. As geopolitical tensions continue to shape the modern world, we're diving into the strategies and power dynamics of two global giants, Russia and the United States. From Syria to Ukraine, the stage is set for a battle of doctrines, technologies, and resources. Let's begin in Syria, where the stakes are high and the approach is ruthless. As Mr. Douglas McGregor has noted, understanding these dynamics is key to grasping global military strategy. But what sets Russia's military campaigns apart? Let's explore how their strategies contrast starkly with Western interventions. In Syria, Russia's priorities are crystal clear, protecting the Tartus and Khmeimim bases at all costs. President Vladimir Putin's directive to terrorist groups was uncompromising surrender or die. This echoes the strategies used during the Chechnya conflicts, where decisive action brought stability, albeit through sheer force. In Syria, this philosophy remains unchanged. Russia's approach in this war-torn region is both calculated and brutal, emphasizing strategic dominance over humanitarian considerations. Unlike its operations in Ukraine, which prioritize civilian safety, Syria serves as an example of military pragmatism devoid of sentimentality. Russia's actions in Syria involve more than just securing military bases. They represent a deeper geopolitical game. By maintaining a significant presence in the region, Russia ensures access to the Mediterranean, counterbalances Western influence, and reinforces its role as a global superpower. The Tartus naval facility, Russia's only Mediterranean port, is vital for sustaining its naval operations and projecting power far beyond its borders. Similarly, the Khmeimim Air Base provides a strategic hub for launching operations and monitoring activity in the Middle East. The operational strategy is defined by precision and effectiveness. Russia's air campaigns target key terrorist positions, logistical hubs, and supply routes using advanced aircraft like the Su-34 and Su-35 to carry out precision strikes. These actions are often coordinated with Syrian government forces on the ground, ensuring maximum impact. At the same time, Moscow employs cutting-edge missile systems, such as Kalibr cruise missiles launched from the Caspian Sea, showcasing the reach and sophistication of its arsenal. The human cost of this strategy is undeniable. Entire towns and cities have been reshaped by the conflict, with insurgents forced to retreat or face annihilation. Yet, Russia's calculated focus on infrastructure preservation in stable areas ensures long-term viability for governance and reconstruction efforts. This dual approach, ruthless destruction of enemy strongholds and careful management of critical zones, highlights the contrast between Syria and other theaters of conflict where indiscriminate destruction prevails. Ultimately, Russia's success in Syria sends a clear message to both allies and adversaries. Moscow is a reliable partner willing to employ overwhelming force to protect its interests. This strategy cements its influence in the Middle East, demonstrating the balance between military pragmatism and long-term geopolitical vision. To grasp the scale of destruction caused by modern airstrikes, we only need to look at Lebanon and Gaza. The sheer magnitude of devastation speaks to the unparalleled firepower wielded by advanced squadrons like the Su-34, Su-35, or F-16. Imagine a coordinated assault involving 10 to 12 bombers unleashing hundreds of glide bombs, each weighing between 500 and 1,500 kilograms, onto densely populated urban centers. The outcome is catastrophic beyond comprehension. Entire skyscrapers collapse into rubble, burying hundreds, even thousands beneath. The shockwaves ripple through adjacent structures, causing secondary collapses and further loss of life. This was Lebanon's grim reality when Israeli F-16s carried out relentless strikes on civilian infrastructure. These airstrikes, conducted under the banner of military necessity, obliterated neighborhoods, turning them into graveyards of concrete and steel. In mere weeks, urban landscapes were transformed into wastelands, forcing mass evacuations and creating humanitarian crises of unprecedented scale. Gaza paints a similar picture. Waves of airstrikes flattened densely populated areas, leaving entire families trapped under rubble. Beyond the immediate casualties, these campaigns disrupt vital services like electricity, water, and medical aid, plunging communities into prolonged suffering. Schools, hospitals, and shelters nominally protected under international law become targets, eroding any semblance of safety for civilians caught in the crossfire. What sets these operations apart from others is the sheer indifference to collateral damage. Western air forces, equipped with precision-guided munitions, often tout their ability to minimize civilian casualties. Yet the reality on the ground tells a different story. When dozens of bombs rain down on urban centers, the distinction between military and civilian targets becomes irrelevant. The result is not just physical destruction, but psychological warfare, instilling fear and hopelessness among surviving populations. Comparing these actions to Russia's approach in Syria reveals stark differences. While Russia's strikes aim to eliminate specific threats with calculated precision, Western campaigns often adopt a broader approach, leading to widespread devastation. This raises uncomfortable questions about accountability and the ethical limits of modern warfare. The reliance on overwhelming firepower rather than targeted diplomacy perpetuates cycles of violence and instability, leaving affected regions in perpetual turmoil. The lessons from Lebanon and Gaza are clear. Modern air power, when wielded without restraint, can erase entire communities, undermining any claims of moral high ground. As nations grapple with the ethics of such tactics, the human cost continues to mount, reminding us of the devastating potential of unchecked military force. The notion that aircraft carriers are obsolete couldn't be further from the truth. Consider this: a U.S. carrier strike group is not just one ship. It's an integrated fleet of warships, aircraft, and support vessels, all operating as a unified force. At the heart of this group is a unified forced craft carrier, capable of deploying 4 or 5 squadrons of F-35 stealth fighters, electronic warfare aircraft, and attack helicopters. These assets provide both air superiority and unparalleled strike capabilities. Supporting these carriers are advanced destroyers and cruisers equipped with Aegis missile defense systems, ensuring protection against air and missile threats. Submarines operate covertly within the group, providing additional layers of defense and offensive firepower. Together, these elements create a fortress at sea, one that can dominate vast regions for extended periods. Critical innovation is the role of expeditionary base ships, which transform civilian tankers into mobile supply hubs. These ships carry ammunition, fuel, and other essentials, enabling carrier groups to operate continuously without returning to fixed ports. This logistical flexibility allows U.S. forces to project power across the globe, from the Pacific to the Middle East. The significance of this capability cannot be overstated. Carrier strike groups serve as both a deterrent and a rapid response force. They are symbols of U.S. military dominance, able to conduct operations ranging from precision airstrikes to humanitarian aid. As Mr. Douglas McGregor has noted, this ability to sustain operations far from home shores is what sets the U.S. Navy apart from all others. Critics may argue that carriers are vulnerable to modern threats such as hypersonic missiles, but the reality is more complex. Advanced defenses, including layered missile systems and electronic countermeasures, make carriers resilient against such challenges. Moreover, the strategic importance of carriers ensures continued investment in their development and evolution, keeping them relevant in modern warfare. While the U.S. perfects this doctrine, Russia sharpens its edge elsewhere, with hypersonic missiles and a nuclear arsenal that overshadows the West. In contrast to the U.S.'s reliance on carrier strike groups, Russia has embraced asymmetrical strategies that capitalize on technological breakthroughs. Central to this approach is its hypersonic missile arsenal, led by systems like the Oreshnik. This missile, capable of reaching speeds of Mach 15, can deliver up to 6 nuclear warheads with pinpoint precision, rendering traditional missile defenses obsolete. The speed and maneuverability of hypersonic missiles pose unprecedented challenges to NATO. Unlike ballistic missiles, which follow predictable arcs, hypersonics can change trajectory mid-flight, making interception virtually impossible. The Oreshnik's range of over 5,800 kilometers allows it to target critical infrastructure across Europe within minutes, creating a deterrent so potent that it reshapes strategic calculations. Yet Russia's strategy goes beyond just deploying these weapons. The limited use of the Oreshnik has left NATO in a state of perpetual uncertainty. By keeping its full capabilities undisclosed, Moscow forces Western powers to speculate and second-guess their defenses. This strategic ambiguity amplifies the psychological impact of these weapons, turning them into tools of geopolitical leverage. Complementing the hypersonic arsenal is Russia's extensive stockpile of nuclear warheads, the largest in the world. From tactical battlefield nukes to strategic ICBMs like the Sarmat, This arsenal ensures that any aggression against Russia would result in catastrophic retaliation. The integration of these weapons into military doctrine reflects Russia's commitment to maintaining a balance of power, or in some cases, tipping it decisively in its favor. Unlike the US, which often showcases its military might, Russia takes a more reserved approach, using demonstrations sparingly to maximize their impact. This strategy allows Russia to remain unpredictable, a hallmark of effective deterrence. By leveraging advanced technology and an unmatched nuclear stockpile, Moscow has created an asymmetrical edge that challenges the conventional dominance of NATO and its allies. But why doesn't Russia fully reveal its capabilities? Let's uncover the logic behind this strategic ambiguity. Now, apparently Washington, D.C. is putting out 3 million feet of naval capital as part of an all-out recruitment campaign. By limiting Oreshnik's deployment, Putin keeps NATO guessing. What are its targets? Is it nuclear armed? Could it strike deep into NATO's fortified bunkers? This uncertainty is a weapon in itself, forcing Western strategists to scramble for answers. As one official put it, it's like fighting aliens with technologies we don't understand. The strategic ambiguity surrounding Oreshnik amplifies its deterrence value. NATO commanders, faced with limited data on this weapon's capabilities, must allocate resources to defend against a potential attack that may never come. This uncertainty stretches their defensive capabilities thin, creating vulnerabilities elsewhere. Meanwhile, the psychological impact of knowing that Russia possesses a weapon capable of bypassing existing missile defenses weighs heavily on decision makers. Beyond the immediate military implications, Oreshnik serves a geopolitical purpose. It underscores Russia's ability to innovate and deploy cutting-edge technology while keeping adversaries in the dark. And moreover, if the Soviet Union should ever have its hands on Russian weapons, this approach forces NATO to expend significant resources on research and countermeasures, diverting focus from other strategic priorities. By deploying Oreshnik sparingly, Moscow maximizes its strategic value while preserving its mystique as a game-changing weapon. But Oreshnik is just one piece of the puzzle. What about the rest of Russia's arsenal? But Oreshnik is just one piece of the puzzle. What about the rest of Russia's arsenal? Oreshnik is terrifying, but it's not alone. Russia's Sarmat ICBMs, Poseidon underwater drones, and Avangard hypersonic glide vehicles form a trinity of global deterrence. These systems, designed to operate in tandem, ensure that no adversary can contemplate a first strike without risking catastrophic retaliation. The Sarmat, often referred to as Satan II by NATO, is a colossal missile capable of delivering over 10 warheads, each targeting a separate location. Its range and payload make it capable of erasing entire continents in a single strike. Then there's Poseidon, the underwater doomsday torpedo. This drone is designed to bypass traditional defenses by traveling underwater at immense depths and speeds, creating radioactive tsunamis that devastate coastal cities. Meanwhile, the Avangard hypersonic glide vehicle adds another dimension to Russia's arsenal. Its ability to maneuver unpredictably at speeds exceeding Mach 20 makes it nearly impossible to intercept. By integrating these systems into its strategic framework, Russia has created a layered deterrence approach that covers land, sea, and air, ensuring comprehensive defense and retaliation capabilities. Together, these weapons highlight Moscow's focus on asymmetrical strategies. Instead of matching the West's conventional forces, Russia leverages advanced technology to maintain a balance of power. This approach is cost-effective and strategically advantageous, demonstrating that quality, not quantity, defines modern military might. So, how does the West plan to counter this? And what role does economic power play in this military chess game? Despite sanctions, Russia's economy has surged. In 2023, it overtook Japan to become the fourth largest economy by purchasing power parity. With a GDP of $6.45 trillion, Russia is now the backbone of a multipolar world. Combine this with its military might, and the picture becomes clear. Economic resilience fuels Russia's strategic ambitions. The foundation of this growth lies in sectors such as energy, defense, and nuclear technology. Rosatom, Russia's state nuclear corporation, continues to set global benchmarks. In 2023, it achieved record revenues driven by cutting-edge advancements in nuclear power and exports of reactors to allied nations. Similarly, the Northern Sea route has opened up lucrative opportunities for Arctic trade, further solidifying Russia's economic influence. While Western nations focus on sanctions, Russia adapts by diversifying its trade partnerships and investing in self-sufficiency. This resilience not only sustains the economy, but also funds critical military programs. The link between economic power and military strength is evident. A stable and growing economy allows for sustained investment in advanced weapons, ensuring Russia's continued relevance on the global stage. Moreover, this economic strength challenges the dominance of Western financial systems. By expanding trade with nations like China and India, Russia builds alternative frameworks that reduce dependence on the US dollar. This strategy undermines the effectiveness of sanctions and signals the emergence of a more balanced global economic order. In conclusion, let's piece together the global implications of these power dynamics. Russia's military and economic strategies are reshaping the global order. From the tactical ruthlessness of Syria to the chilling ambiguity of Oreshnik, every move is calculated. While the US relies on brute force through carrier strike groups, Russia's asymmetric innovations keep the West perpetually on edge. The world stands at a crossroads, and the next chapter is yet to be written. As Mr. Douglas McGregor aptly summarized, understanding these shifts is critical to navigating the future of global power. Thank you for joining us. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment below with your thoughts on today's analysis. Until next time, stay informed and vigilant.